to episode 222 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest spoilers for the casual spike.
Full-time spoiler pod.
That's all you get to make nowadays in the Magic community. My name is Stanislav here in Manchester. With me on the line from Denver, Colorado, the one and only Shane Beeps.
Stanislav.
Shane, you're back.
I'm back, my friend. It's just me and you. Just the two of us. We can make this podcast without David or Devin.
We don't need him.
Yeah, I'm back. I was on vacation last week. It ruled. I was in the Magic Kingdom. It's a legendary artifact. Legendary land, really, I would say. And you know what? Disney, get at us, sponsor this podcast, because I enjoyed it.
We'll make Lorcana content.
Would we? Yeah, let's do like
We
a little
would.
side.
Why not?
Who publishes Lorcana? How do we get at them?
I think it's actually a German publisher, I think.
Oh, no.
I knew this for a minute, because I wrote about Lorcana for Polygon, but now I don't remember.
So it's a German publisher. German developer?
Oh, Ravensburger.
Oh, okay. It sounds German.
I think that's why in my head it was like, I think they're the Germans.
No, but...
Oh, yeah, they're from Ravensburg, Germany. There we go.
Oh, well, not just a clever name. So, yeah, I'm back. Stanislav, have you ever been to Disney?
So I've been inside Disney World as a child when I was in second grade. And then as an adult, when I was working in the music industry, when we first met, and I would have to go to Anaheim every year for like a big convention of music merchants to sell gear to aging musicians. It was in Anaheim, so I would visit Disneyland to go to dinner, basically.
Oh, that's sweet. So you can sit when you sold high end in-ear monitors, you considered that working in the music industry. I just want to be clear here.
I mean, all of my clients were musicians.
Well, then I guess that counts. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's for sure. You're basically a producer. You're David Geffen.
I consider myself more of a Steve Albini type.
But yeah, Stan,
Shane,
we have a somewhat tight timeline.
that's right.
But it is just me and you.
That's
But
true too.
we have a ticking time bomb of the end of this episode. But thankfully, there's no big modern tournaments that are going on. The PT was standard or is standard. I think it's still going on technically.
Mm-hmm.
No SCGs, no NRGs, nothing that I think we had to. You guys did a really nice breakdown of the metagame last week, so we're gonna just cut straight to the point and just have a nice dive down this week. Tell us what we're doing this week because I already forgot.
Sure, yeah. On this week's show, we are somehow already talking about new spoilers yet again from two different sets, sort of. Just weeks since our last spoiler episode from the previous set, which is arguably the current set. Because as of now, we officially have seen, through official sources and channels, the entire 50-card set that is called March of the Machine Aftermath.
Aftermath.
So we're going to talk about that. We're just going to highlight some of the cards that we think are interesting or even maybe playable. This is the only spoiler episode we'll do on Aftermath.
I mean, Stanislav, I'm highlighting literally every March of the Machine Aftermath card I think's interesting or potentially playable. I don't know about... I'm not leaving any on the cutting room floor on this one because I think I only have 7 or 8. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it was pretty slim pickings. And for that reason, I think we're also going to have time to chat a little bit about some of the new details that have emerged out of the Lord of the Rings set.
Oh, yeah.
We now know what it means when the ring tempts you, Shane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm tempted by this weird new dungeon thing. We'll see.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about this with you because I think it's interesting. It's interesting. At least as long as I don't, when I right click in Magic the Gathering Online and it says observe state of dungeons, I don't think it's going to say observe state of the ring, thankfully.
We'll find out. And then finally, time permitting, we might even do a wee cheeky wind down.
Ooh, cheeky.
And if not, we'll just cut this tease altogether. So I guess if you're hearing it, we are doing a wind down. Or perhaps our editor forgot to cut this tease.
and then I didn't catch it in like the final edit run through thing.
Right. So, as is the case in life and love, nothing is truly certain, but we march on with the machine. First, let's housekeep. Shout out to new patron to join the Dive Down Nation. We got Jackson B in the house.
Jackson B.
Thanks, Jackson. You the beast. If you'd like to support our show, you can do so over at patreon.com/thedivedown.
I have been packing boxes of our fresh swag. We got fresh tokens, we got fresh stickers, we got fresh pins. Dave even kind of like upped the color game, I think, in the pins and stickers. It's got a little bit of a different tone. I think it's really rad. So those are being made, and those we have a big backlog to get to because you ran out of tokens, you ran out of pins, and things like that. I just got a big pile of signed dive downs in, so we have a lot of work to do. And we know that some of you haven't got your stuff for a while, but if you want to support us, you can get things like sticker sheets. You can get things like 7 different, magic related and dive down related pins. You can get the deck boxes that we have hundreds and hundreds of in our basements because you can only get 1,000 at a time. Was it 2,000 or 1,000? It was a lot.
Like 4,000.
It was $4,000, maybe. You get access to the episode early. You get a playmat at certain tiers. So there's a lot of benefits for joining the Patreon. So like Stan said, patreon.com/thedivedown helps keep us financed for all the various subscriptions and editors and things we have got to pay for. So we appreciate all your support out there.
Yeah. You can also support us through our merch store over at thedivedown.com/store, or just go to thedivedown.com. You'll find store in the banner. It works like every other website on the internet that you've been to in the last few years. If you'd like to support us while playing Magic the Gathering, check out Mana Traders to rent Magic Online cards. If you sign up with promo code TheDiveDown2023, you'll get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. You can also support us through our friends at Barrister & Man for some shaving soaps, fragrances, and more. Using the same promo code, TheDiveDown2023, gets you 15% off your first order from B&M. And then finally, support yourself with a discount on Magic trading cards, physical cards, not digital cards, real cards, cardboard cards over at Nerd Rage Gaming.
Love cardboard cards.
Use promo code DIVE8 at NRG to get 8% off your order with them. That's all the housekeeping for today. Let's jump into it. The march of the machine has come to a grinding halt. The war is over. We won, but at what cost? And the aftermath is upon us.
Yeah, Stan.
Shane.
This is a weird set.
It is weird.
It feels like a cash grab. I have to admit, what is it? So it's a 50 card set.
Yeah.
There's 15 uncommons, 25 rares, 10 mythic rares, so 50 cards in total. Right?
The fact that there's no commons is so funny. Like it just goes to, like the uncommons are the commons.
Yeah, right. If there are no commons, aren't they all? Yeah. And like all 50 cards have like these like booster fun versions, which are like alt art, alt printings. There's all the rares and mythic rares have extended art versions that are only in collector's boosters. It's like somewhat cheaper than a normal set box, but you get a lot fewer cards. Like it's like a box of 24 5-card packs. It's like $83 on Amazon right now. Like, I think that's like 175,000 Great British pounds. So I'm not into it. No, thank you on the cost of these cards. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about this? Let's have some hot takes about like this. What is it called? Like a
supplement set.
Supplement set. Like they're calling it like a.
It is standard legal. So these could see play in Pioneer and Modern too.
Yeah, and Legacy and Commander.
Yeah. So it's odd because like you could say double feature was also sort of a cash grab. Remember last year when they released a set that was just the last 2 sets combined with 0 curation, but the cards were now black and white?
Yeah. I mean, that was just like if you wanted to buy it, you could, just sort of shoving more into circulation. But these are like cards that you might want to play.
Right. I think it's weird that like this is not a draftable set. So unless there is like a mom aftermath draft format or some way to incorporate these into a limited environment, like that maybe that's interesting. It just makes me wonder like what were these designed for? Were they strictly designed for constructed play? If so, like you would think that maybe they would be a bit more pushed
Yeah,
or
exact. That's the thing is like they not only do they not feel super pushed, it's like you don't get a lot of there's not a lot of cards and they don't feel super pushed. Like long story short, right? And I
Mhm.
think I think there are some commandery cards in here that we won't be talking about, of course, right? Like that's just kind of the thing that drives a lot of the sales of these sets these days.
Yeah.
But not to compare it, I don't like comparing this game to Flesh and Blood, and I'm not super engaged with Flesh and Blood as I used to be. But the supplemental sets that are undraftable for Fab, I think they're like 10 cards instead of 15 per set. Excuse me, per booster pack. So going from 10 to 5, just on the terms of pure cardboard you're getting, I'm like, why am I unwrapping this foily cellophane stuff around 5 cards, including one, the sixth one is an ad or token card, by the way. So
Yeah.
you're not that feels like a kick in the butt to me. Just like here's your 5 pieces of precious magic cardboard and one potential ad card.
Yeah, it's almost like the paper version of alchemy. You know what I mean? But they have to like actually operate within paper physics, unlike alchemy
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah, they have to get distributed somehow. I mean, I feel like these should just be like packs you get for, what would be cool for stuff like this, Dan, is like, this is the kind of stuff that LGSs get, and you have to either attend some kind of event, or it's
Yeah.
like, and not even paying for anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's like you go to the store, like some kind of like store expo, and they have them as like handouts or something like that, like just to encourage people to be getting to like an LGS, or playing something online if they're not really close to an LGS, or just some way to use like this like 5 card booster as something fun
Yeah.
instead of as like a commercial product. And I know it's kind of a ridiculous ask, but that's the kind of stuff I would prefer to see for things like this.
We'll see what happens. I mean, if they're a success, good, I think. I mean, if people buy them a lot, they're just going to keep doing this, and eventually
Oh
we're
yeah.
gonna see a situation, I think, where one of the cards will be really good, and it'll be $100 because it'll be like Shieldred levels of playable.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk thematically about this because we should get into the cards. So I guess what this like follows the cataclysmic effects of invasion across planes and their defenders. I'm just reading the copy from WotC. So now the planes are connected in like weird ways. All these heroes are celebrating and mourning. I guess stuff happened. Planeswalkers have lost their spark. They've lost the power to step between planes. So we have like a lot of planeswalkers who are now just creatures. And so all of these stories and beginning of like new stories is like all beginning on May 12th, which is the day after this episode drops. And that's when Aftermath hits the shelves. And so you can go prepared into your booster box opening or your single purchasing with our perfect takes on our picks to click from Aftermath. And Stanislav,
Okay.
I think we're going to go in Wooburg order, and I believe you had the first card here.
Yeah, this is the only white card that jumped out to us, and that's Coppercoat Vanguard. One and a white for a human soldier. It's a 2/2. Each other human you control gets +1/+0 and has ward 1. So humans playable deck across formats. Like you gotta almost pay attention to every 2-drop human, especially one that is good for your other creatures. Ward 1 is interesting because it's almost doing like a Thalia impression here. It doesn't have
Yeah.
first strike, but it protects your board in a way that like Thalia sort of does too. It just makes me wonder if there are certain situations where this could actually even be better than Thalia.
Well, what's funny is when you put Thalia in the notes last night and I looked, I thought you were actually referring to Thalia's lieutenant because I
No.
was like, each other human you control gets +1/+0. So it's not adding the defensive counter It's just adding the offensive power of like Athalia's tenant hitting the board. So it has like a Lord-like effect, but it also has a protection-like effect in Ward 1. And I kind of overlooked this card. I didn't overlook it. There's not many cards to overlook. I specifically didn't put it on my list because I was like, this doesn't seem powerful enough. But then I was reminded that Fury exists.
Mm.
And so this taxing Fury really heavily, is I think is pretty good. I think that's what would make it potentially playable and potentially give humans an ability to survive in the current modern metagame.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, it's like not just Fury, like I think it's also defensible against Ren and 6. It makes it harder for Ren and 6 decks to just -1 and ping off humans that way too.
Oh, for sure. Like I mean,
They
it
essentially have
channels
to wait
everything.
to turn 3.
Yeah, so it gives you the ability to play stuff to the board and not immediately have it get eaten alive by various pingers or small removal spells or things like stomp potentially in Pioneer or shock like effects. I think that's just something that it really does allow some early protection and also allows you to get aggressive. And my only issue is, like, unlike Athalia's Lieutenant, is it's not actually physically building your board. Like when Coppercoat Vanguard dies, all your humans don't keep that +1/+1 counter, right? And that's kind of the loss here. Is like it's
Hmm.
like losing a lord that's not even giving you defensive power across your board. And we know how important that is in things like spirits and things like other humans decks that have given the lord-like effect and merfolk, all that kind of stuff. So I think that is potential risk, but I do see some playability here.
All right, let's jump to our only blue card,
Yeah.
which is one that we actually had overlap on. I was going to put this card down too, and then you beat me to it.
All right. It's a Vesuvan Drifter, 2 and a blue for a 2/4 flying shapeshifter creature. It reads, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. And at the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, Vesuvan Drifter becomes a copy of that card until the end of the turn, except it has flying. So,
This
the
card
issue here,
rules.
yeah, this card rules
I like this card.
if you can control what's on the top of your deck, right?
Okay.
And I think in Modern, there are probably ways I'm overlooking, but we don't have a ton of great ways to control the top of our deck. Like we don't have Brainstorm. Uh, we we do have things like Jace the Mind Sculptor, which of course costs 4 and has to stay on the board, but
Yeah, but
lets you control the top of your deck over and over and over again. But at that point, what are you
eh.
really doing? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think this wants to be in a deck full of Jaces, right? This wants to be in a
No.
deck full of creatures, I would assume.
Well, I think it wants to be in a deck full of a few really good creatures, right?
Yeah.
Because and they have to have abilities like on attack or static abilities or things like that. You know what I mean? Like because you don't get ETBs, which is like the big reason that a lot of creatures these days are seeing play. So you'd have to be able to get some really good advantage of the payoff of controlling the top of your deck. But then you're also drawing that card the next turn, unless you have some way to keep it on top of your deck.
Yeah, so I mean, here's my take and why I actually really like this card. I think that for this card to be good, you have to win when you see the right card at the top of your deck. And although it doesn't get the ETBs, like I think there's two like applications that jump out to me. For one is this is just extra copies of Goblins. Yes, it's in blue, but as a shapeshifter, it is a goblin. If it can get in through Aether Vial, or if you could like uh, uh, find a way to just generate blue mana in the goblins
Yeah.
deck. Do they play? They play 4 Cavern of Souls, so that makes the cut. And they play fetch land, so you can just like put in a blue source, and you're probably okay. So I like that about this, but unlike Goblin Snoop, this doesn't have to be in a Goblin deck. So imagine if you have this on the board and you see an Emrakul on the top of your library, or like some other powerful Eldrazi that has like a killer attack trigger. That was the part that kind of stuck out to me as like one swing from Emrakul is really all you need, because I think then you can also like like annihilate
Oh yeah,
them.
yeah,
So
yeah. You get like annihilator triggers, you get stuff like that. So like you're basically saying like, hey, this could be like more conspicuous snoops for me.
yeah, conspicuous snoops that don't even have to go into goblin decks.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like in the goblin deck, like this is just doing everything Snoop does for one more mana. I think Snoop is still probably better, right? Because cons- conspicuous conspicuous Snoop also lets you cast goblins from the top of your library,
yes,
but this will still, however, have that 1-2 punch with Boggart Harbinger.
yeah. I think this card is not going to be like a constructed powerhouse, but I do think people are going to try to build around it, try to have fun with it, make something happen with it. I think maybe it might be the kind of like a sneak and showy type thing in Legacy where it sort of adds to that power because you have better ways to control the top of your deck for more reasonable costs, like I said, with Brainstorm. But I think that it might not be enough for modern, besides like, fun and games, which is what this game actually is. So go for it.
Fun in my card game?
In my competitive card game?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think this one is sneaky. One worth keeping an eye on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it does something novel, and novelty is what you want to look at.
All right, we only have one black card too
This is a
that we
cool one.
that we liked, and this one was on the bubble for me, but you actually wrote it down.
Ayara's Oathsworn, 1 and a black for a human knight, 2/2 with menace. Whenever Ayara's Oathsworn deals combat damage to a player, if it has fewer than 4+1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then if it has exactly 4+1/+1 counters on it, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Ooh.
So yeah, I think this is an interesting card. It sort of has like a suspend-like effect, like Profane Tutor, while still being a creature. Like it still has, it has to be the creature. It has to gain counters. I get it, but like it has the menace effect that helps with the attacking. This synergizes with other human counter effects, no problem. But the thing that it has to do is it has to hit,
Mm.
and it has to hit while having exactly 3 or 4 counters on it to trigger. Because like if it has 3, it'll get the fourth, and then it'll go off. And if it already has 4, it won't get another counter, and then it will trigger as well. So this kind of snowballs as a cheap menace attacker, getting damage in, and then it also tutors up a card from your deck at a perfectly like fine rate for a 2/2 for 2 human knight, in an Orzhov style humans deck somewhere. I think this has some play because what's cool about it is like if you're doing the counter thing, like you're going to be doing in a Orzhov humans deck in the first place, is you might just be able to get this thing up to like a 3/3 or 4/4 before it's even attacking in the first place,
Hmm.
just with counter gain. And then you have like, oh man, this is like my 4/4 menace for 2, and that's like pretty sweet. Like that's not easy to deal with early, but your opponent's going to be very incentivized to block it, which might allow you to keep your other more powerful cards on the board for a while, like the 3/4s with vigilance that are creating tokens, every time and stuff like that. So it's really stressing your opponent out in a few different ways, and like it's making them have to worry about more than a few haymakers in a humans deck. Because I think if this thing sticks around for a while, there's a lot of options. I think for just a few one-ofs, especially in sideboard games, where you're like, hey, I'm going to tutor up a protection spell against control or something like that, or I'm going to tutor up really important lord or really important creature or like a tech creature, something like that. So I can see a lot of applications here. Well, I can see a lot of things that it could get in very specific Orzhov style humans decks.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe it's worth mentioning like the counter support that we're imagining here. I'm assuming you're referring to cards like Luminarch Aspirant, which gives a target creature a +1/+1 counter at the beginning of every combat, and then Thalia's Lieutenant is, I think, probably the best one because that just gives a 1/1 counter on each human you control when it ETBs.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of ways to build this up, and I could be overestimating how easy it is to get tokens on these style of creature decks because yeah, like really humans is more of a kind of a go wide deck. You're not going as tall as you are in modern humans, I think, as frequently as you were with modern humans, but I can see the possibilities here.
Yeah, I dig it. I like The fact that it's a 2-drop, I think that's the exact right mana cost. Humans getting a lot of love here. I think it's getting to the point where humans is getting hard to build because you just have like so many playables to choose from, like that don't even have to cost more than 2 mana.
Yeah, that's always the stress, right? Is like what cards, and we have another one later on in this episode. Spoilers that is another human for
Oh,
2 mana and has
oh,
certain tech applications. So you know,
yeah,
I think this is just a kind of an interesting effect where it's like this is doing potentially a lot, but not asking you a lot by putting it in your deck.
right.
And like so, like for me, I was like a pretty decent floor. This is a perfectly fine floor. Yeah, especially in like a low to the ground humans deck where this is going to be able to grow pretty quickly, I think. And like I said, it kind of puts some pressure on your opponent that you want to be putting on them. So
All right, moving along, we have 2 green cards. The first one, Shane put on the list, not Stan.
oh, you're gonna make me talk about this? All right, it's a Nissa Resurgent Animist 2 and a green legendary elf scout 3/3. This is our no longer planeswalker Nissa. So
Hmm.
is this like permanent? Like there's no longer going to be a Nissa planeswalker until she regains her spark or something? Is this like this is canon?
Yeah, you're not even allowed to play the old Nissa Planeswalker cards. They're all insta-banned.
Oh man, they just cut up, rip him in half, or send him to me. So this Nissa reads landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield in your control, add 1 mana of any color. So that's what a Lotus Cobra effect, correct?
Nice.
Then if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an elf or elemental card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So I don't know if this does anything, but it does cost $20 pre-order.
Okay, so we can't judge cards based on their pre-order price because I
Yes,
think
we can.
the
I'm
distribution of
doing it.
Aftermath is messing with pre-order prices.
I'm doing it right now.
I think.
I mean, this is a cool effect, but it's also 2 and a green. So it's
Yeah,
like, I mean, so elf or elemental, right? So, and it's not an elemental itself. So, like,
right.
is it going to see play in like 4-color elementals decks? Probably not. I mean, it ramps you like with fetch lands. It's really good. So, like, you play this on turn 3 or turn 4. You drop a fetch land. It triggers once. You drop another fetch land. I mean, excuse me, you crack the fetch, get another land, it triggers again. Then, because it's the second time the ability's resolved, you then peel through your deck until you get another elemental card. So it's basically drawing you a creature rather than drawing you just a random card. So I mean, that's something, but it's not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can put this in an elf deck. I think that elemental clause there is probably why this card might be good. Like, because it's almost like a little baby Omnath, where it wants you to like play fetches and crack them on the same turn to just like accrue card advantage that way.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
it's just,
this plus Omnath and Risen Wreath is like just
yeah,
a
that's
way
the
to
thing.
churn through your deck crazy fast.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it just like it sort of adds to that? But does the deck need that? I honestly don't know, is the thing. Like, I don't know if this deck is missing like this type of effect right now, like at the 3 spot. And people who are more into the deck are going to have to answer that question for me. I haven't, typically what I do is I like to go through Reddit or other sources and just be like, hey, is anyone really talking about this card? Like, what are people noticing? Like, are they noticing things I'm not? I didn't see a ton of, Nissa threads with like 500 upvotes, like with the community going wild over Resurgent Animist. But I think it's something to keep an eye on because again, I like every set has lots of novel cards, but this one is it's not actually a super novel effect, but it combines a few powerful effects at a reasonable mana cost.
Right on. All
What
right,
do you
so
have? You've got a card.
yeah, I got another green 3-drop. It's Tranquil Frillback, doing a green for a 3/3 dinosaur. When it ETBs, you may pay green up to 3 times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, choose up to that many instances of destroy target artifact or enchantment, or exile target player's graveyard, or you gain 4 life. So I mean, I like that this is just like a flexible mana sink that gives you counterplay
Sure.
against a variety of other strategies, like gaining life, dealing with potentially problematic permanents, exiling graveyards. Like that's all good. If I understand the templating also, like I think this means you can pay GG and gain 8 life.
I don't. That's what I was just going to ask you. I don't think that's the case. It says, yeah, when you choose up to that many, like I think once you choose, is the choice gone? Because I feel like if you could pay three, I guess, man, like is three green 12 life? Like that seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of things that you could get out of one card, but we'll have to find out.
I think if that works out this way, like I think this could just be like a really solid sideboard card that like lets you not have to diversify as many answers to opposing decks. You know, like in
Yeah,
Mono Green Devotion, for instance, like this gives you play against burn strategies. This gives you play against Phoenix or really any delve strategies, as well as obviously the artifact Greasefang combo. Thank you, Stan, for remembering that on your own. So I don't know. I think maybe there's something to the fact that this is just like giving you tons of options if as long as you have the mana, and we have the mana to do it. The fact that it's 3 mana just to cast and then like 4 mana to get an effect on it, I think that's probably the only problem. But you can get this off of a Coco because it's an
yeah,
ETB, and then like the trigger goes on the
yes.
stack even off of Cocos anyway.
Yeah, that's important. Is one, I think that you don't have to cast it is really nice. I do know I will note that you cannot choose the same mode multiple times because cards that allow you to do that always specify it. So you can only choose it. You can only choose each mode once, which I think does take this down a little bit for me, where it's like I can only destroy one target, like one naturalize effect, one graveyard exile effect, one life gain effect. I feel like we've seen other cards like this that haven't really sniffed play, like these kicker creatures, where it's like, hey, like when this creature comes in, you can pay a little bit more and get some effects. But like you said, I think the fact that you can do multiple things as a mana sink is pretty decent. Like I think the fact that you can Coco into it is pretty good. Like you don't have to cast it. You can Aether Vial into it if you're doing something really rogue. Uh, I don't think this is going to like break anything wide open, but I agree with you where I think it's going to see, it's a sideboard option for certain types of decks and probably not like modern level, but
Hmm.
maybe in something like, like a Pioneer green based creature deck, you could do a lot worse than this for sure.
Cool. All right, let's jump into multicolored cards, gold
This is where stuff gets
cards.
interesting to me. This is where
Oh
stuff gets
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah. We have a lot. We have a lot of gold cards. Do we have more gold cards than monocolored cards?
Yes, by a good amount.
Okay, sweet. All right, let's start with one of the cards we've teased.
Yeah. Jirina, Dauntless General, white and the black. Legendary Human Soldier, 2/2. Another 2/2, 2/2 for 2. Human. Whenever Jirina ETBs exile target player's graveyard, you can also sacrifice her, and humans you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Generically strong, generically useful. Orzhov human sideboards, probably. Good ETB, good sacrifice ability. It's going to see play at some point.
Yeah. I like that you can play this and Kithian and Thalia, and I think you have an argument for Mox Amber.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're right. It's another legendary. That's really
Yeah.
good. And it's
Yeah,
white and black. So, like, you could get both white and black mana off your amber.
exactly. I also think that this having the sacrifice ability in particular makes it actually like decent in multiples because it's
Yeah.
solving like one of the deck's problems, which is like control strategies or even something like Phoenix, for example. Anything that has point removal, Rakdos, of course. Like you can sack it, make sure nothing else is targetable if you have other important permanents, and then you just play more of them because don't want to. You really normally don't want to play multiple legends otherwise, and this has utility for that. So
For sure.
it almost seems like too obviously good. Like this seems like
Yeah. I mean,
worth
it's not
exploring on
absurd.
day one.
It's not absurd. It's just good.
Just
And that's
good,
all you
Jerry.
need. That's all you need for a 2/2 for 2 human.
All right, next gold card. This one jumped out to me, and if I'm just gonna like make a called shot, like I think this might be the strongest card in the set.
Whoa.
I really think this card is special. It's
I might have missed
Calix.
something.
Calix Guided by Fate. 1 green, white for a legendary enchantment creature, human, druid. It's got Constellation. When it or another enchantment ETBs under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So you can put a creature on it or a counter on it. And then when Calix or an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control. Do this only once each turn.
Yes.
So there's this deck in Pioneer called Enigmatic Fires.
Yes. I've heard of it.
It has threats like I think Fate Spinner or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is, I think this is like Cocoa Bananas in that deck. Truly,
Okay.
that deck has removal, so it's really easy for this to connect, and it has just like a bunch of powerful enchantments that do a variety of different things depending on like what you're building to or where you are in a game state. And I think the flexibility and ability to copy other enchantments to either get you through your deck, pop off with enigmatic fires, make Fable of the Mirror Breakers for like a ton of extra value.
Yeah.
I just think it's like making free cardboard while still remaining on plan for that deck and potentially just like generating crazy amounts of value along the way.
Yeah. I mean, the ceiling is good. Ceiling is incredible. My issue here is that I think the floor is pretty low. Like if things aren't going the way that you want, then this doesn't do a lot for you. But now it does like drawing. Like let's say, you draw the wrong enchantment in your deck or something like that, and you're also not doing a lot. So I think that this is a cool card, and like you said, I think it does something novel and great, like and powerful. So I'm into it. I do think that there's a very particular way you want to build around this card. I think that another way to do this too is not just enigmatic fires, but like a green white auras deck, right? Like you start. It has the green white auras stuff going on. Like you target it, you target something with an enchantment, and it gets a counter, and the enchantment's also probably doing stuff to make your creature bigger. It deals combat damage. You make you double up, some kind of wild enchantment you have, and turns your thing into like a 40/40 beater that's just going to be like ending the game fairly immediately. So I think that there's a few options here and there. I don't know if that's kind of a win more situation, where if you're already hitting with a suited up Glade Cover Scott or something like that, you're already going to be winning. But I think that there's a few ways to play this card. I think it's doing something cool. At 3 mana, it's like slightly harder to imagine than like the Auras deck.
Yeah.
I think that your Fires deck is more likely here. But yeah, it's cool. It's fun. And I think people are going to try to do stuff with it. All right. I've got a debatable one, and I think a pretty cool one, back to back, Stan. Narset, Enlightened Exile, 1 blue, red, white, Jeskai mana. Legendary human monk, 3/4. Creatures you control have prowess, including Narset. And whenever Narset attacks, exile target non-creature, non-land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Look, this is expensive. It will likely not see legitimate play, but I wish it would. It's just fun, right? It's like give everything prowess. Whenever she attacks in, you get to like do something cool, like you exile like a spell or something like that with mana value less than her power and cast it. That triggers all of your creatures, giving them prowess. So, like, I mean, it's a finisher if you still have a board. You know what I mean? Like it's going to end the game pretty quickly. It's going to give you some ability to cast some spells. Like let's say you untap with this, and you're like, removal spell, attack, removal spell. It triggers everything. Your opponent can't block because they have like no creatures left. You have a lot of power on even if you have like 2 or 3 creatures, they're likely getting in like 6, 7, 8, 10 damage. 17, 120. damage. And then, I think it's interesting. Like I think it's expensive for what you're getting. If it was like 3 mana and a little bit less of a body, like let's say like a 2/3 for 3 that gave everything prowess and has ability, that would be really cool. But I think this is cool. I think this is probably more like a commander card, but I think it would be fun to do something with this in 60 card constructed.
Yeah. You brought up something that I hadn't considered actually, which is that it kind of does a Dreadhorde Arcanist impersonation, where
Yeah.
you can like cast the same removal spell twice. I think that's actually a pretty big game that had been lost on me. The fact that it gives creatures you control prowess too, like this plus young pyromancer effects is kind of neat because it's like this
Oh
build
yeah.
your own monastery
Yep,
mentor,
exactly.
right? So maybe you just have them all in the deck. I don't think that I don't think they end up with prowess. That would be
Oh, they
probably
do. Prowess stacks.
prowess stacks.
Maybe not. Double prowess?
We now have a card that does have prowess, so like
Yeah,
we know
right?
that a card can have prowess. Whether or not in this case it stacks remains to be seen.
That seems unlikely. You can't get double trample, but I mean, maybe prowess
Right.
is different. I'm not a judge.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Just
I
play one on
promised we would
TV.
talk about that too. I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's
Yeah.
fun.
This is why you should be playing Commander, Shane. Like this is
Honestly, I was just talking. I was at a cookout, some of my wife's coworkers and stuff like that yesterday, and
yum.
one person.
Did you bring your own
he-
mushrooms?
No, they had tofu barbecue.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things that I talked to somebody about was he and his son, who's like in his early 20s, plays like modern and commander, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he is also a Rhino boy.
Hey.
And we were talking about, I was like, I need to build one commander deck. I was like, I gotta have one at least, because like it's just like everyone plays it.
Yeah. A nice commander group can be fun.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, will it be Narset? I mean, potentially. That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
I doubt it for you. I doubt it, but
Yeah.
prove
I mean,
me wrong.
There are blue spells in there.
All right.
Let's talk about the card I like.
Yeah. Nixilis, Captive Kingpin, 2 black red for a legendary creature demon. It has Flample, and it's a 4/3. Whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a 1/1 counter on Nixilis, Captive Kingpin. Exile the top card of your library until your next end step. You may play that card. Hoo-wee! That's a lot of good text.
I agree.
4 mana, 4/3 flying trample. I think like that alone is like such a great floor.
Yeah.
Good body. Good body.
Yeah, totally fine. You're not excited to play it, but you're not like embarrassed.
Each opponent losing exactly 1 life doesn't take a lot of work at all.
No. Have you heard of a little combination called Cat Oven?
Meow?
Rakdos sacrifice players potentially rejoice. Like, I mean, we've seen decks like that spread out into Jund, and one of the advantages of Jund is you get Corvold,
Mm-hmm.
the Fate Cursed King or something like that, and that's like your big finisher. This doesn't require you going into green, so this is just a cool card. It lets you close the game quickly. It doesn't require you to like dirtle in your kind of just sacrificing stuff and getting little tiny triggers for a million turns. Like this really does close things down, and like you said, it's still doing something, even if you had your pinging graveyard stuff get hosed earlier in the game. So
Yeah,
lets
I
you
think
kind of
this
have
is
a backup plan.
totally. We're probably not talking about this in modern, but like the fact that it makes opponents fetch lands like a little
Yeah,
awkward
yeah.
makes me wonder if like, is there a way for like Scam to like play this post board against like a Ren and 6 deck?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
there's-
crazy?
I mean that second sentence. I was just making sure it was a second. Exile the top card of your library until your next end step. You may play that card. Like,
Yeah,
that's
dog.
sweet.
It
Whenever-
just keeps getting better the more you spend time reading this card.
Whenever one or more opponents lose exactly 1 life, it's not only once per turn. It's just like whenever they lose one life, you exile a top card of your library, my friend.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, this card is cool.
You could combo this. Like, let's say you have some ability to like just continually ping your opponent. You could exile the whole dang library. You know what I mean? And like get to a specific combo finisher. There's just a lot of interesting things you can do with this, and whether it's finishing your opponent off really quickly, digging through your deck, there's just a lot of cool stuff you can do, and I think it's quite good.
All right, so this is sort of like in the spirit of your Narset pick of like a card that is like maybe it's not the most exciting, but there's something about it that speaks to me, and I want it to be good, and that's Nalaar, Consul of Revival. It costs 2 mana, red white, for a 2/3 legendary human artificer. Thopters you control have haste, and whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. I just want this card to be good. I don't know why. There's something about it. The fact that it lets you make a bunch of bodies for like finding ways to just cast things out of exile, which is not that hard. Like play things like Ren's Resolve and light up the stage. Play the 3 mana Chandra that ticks up. Or is it 4 mana Chandra? Or both of them?
Play
Both of them.
Nixilis.
Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. No, that's not it. You know what I'm talking about? Chandra, Dress to Kill. Yeah, exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. It just seems like it asks you to do cool stuff. I don't know if it's asking you to do powerful stuff. And
yeah, I'm fine being asked that question sometimes.
Yeah.
Shane, will you do cool but not powerful stuff, and then do like a sick roundhouse?
My camera's rolling, Shane. Do it now.
Was that cool?
This is on YouTube. Yeah, I don't have like a strong impassioned plea. I don't feel the need to convince anyone. Maybe this is the commander I want to make out of this set, but
I feel like Thopters you control have haste has to do something, but like I wasn't immediately shown some kind of like Thopter combo where it's like I made 35 Thopters and they all had haste and so they swung in type thing. But
yeah, so we do have like a similar card for Magic Origins. It is a 3-drop that gave Thopters, maybe it was all artifacts had haste. Oh yeah, artifact creatures you control have haste. This is a 3-dropped. That's called Thopter Engineer. That was an old standard card I loved when I first fell in love with Soul Artifact.
Now you've got 8 Thops.
Yeah, 8 Thops. So yeah, long story short, like I'll be shocked if this is constructed playable, but I just wanted to vocalize the fact that I saw this card and it kind of made the Johnny in me pleased.
I mean, that's all that really matters, Dan. Speaking of the Johnny and me being pleased, we've got Sarkhan Soul Aflame, 1 blue-red for a legendary human shaman, 2/4. You know what I like about all these cards, Dan? Is that they all have legitimate bodies, by and large. You know what I mean? Like, they're all surviving stomps, shocks, things like that. So, like, in Pioneer, especially, I think, like, a lot of these multicolored cards with cool abilities are going to stay in the battlefield more often than they would have if they were, slightly statted slightly less. But dragon spells, cost 1 less to cast. Whenever a dragon ETBs under your control, you may have Sarkhan Soul Aflame become a copy of it until end of turn, except its name is Sarkhan Soul Aflame, and it's legendary in addition to its other types. 2/4.
So when it becomes a copy of that dragon, it's no longer a 2/4, right? Like if it's
no, it's just that dragon, my friend.
If it's Sprite Dragon, it's a 1/1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this seems really good. I mean, it's not like outrageous, but it's like it's 3 mana. It reduces the cost of all your other cards, all your other dragon cards. Gives all your dragons pseudo haste. So it's just like, hey, like you cast this, it's gonna survive. It's a 2/4. Like you're gonna have certain kinds of removal to get rid of it. I mean, of course, that removal does exist, but it's a perfectly fine statted body. Then you untap with it, and you're like, hey, I can cast a 5-drop dragon on turn 4, and it has haste, even if it doesn't already have it. Or you get 2 of them. You get 2. You have lots of your 5-mana dragons are hasty, and then you just have 2 of them coming in with Sarkhan and it. You probably are getting like some cool attack trigger or something like that. And I think this is really good. Like I think that the floor is totally fine, and I think the ceiling is really good. And I think like Is It Dragons gives you a lot of options. Like, right? It's like I don't think you're because dragons are so heavily into red, and we see it sometimes stretch into Rakdos or like 5 color if you're really greedy or something like that. But I think Is It is a perfectly fine place for Is It's to kind of be for dragons to be based out of. And then you just go to town with your Sarkhan Soul Flame. Like I think it's cool.
So that got me thinking. This templating, it becomes a copy of it, except its name is Sarkhan and it's legendary. So let's say you play like one of the. Let's say you play a legendary dragon. It doesn't conflict with legend rule, so you don't have to like sack the other legend
because like there's no it's not a legendary like it's not a legendary dragon of its name. It's a legendary creature named Sarkhan Soul Flame. So
yeah, that is neat. That is neat. Imagine
it's
this
good.
with like a couple glory bringers.
Into it. Yeah, I mean like even
Seems
like I
good.
said, like you just get a lot. You get a lot here. Like because dragons have all of those like 4 and 5 mana dragons specifically have a lot of those really good attack or connect triggers. You know what I mean? Or if you have like those that new like flip enchantment where it's like every time a dragon attacks, you know what I mean? Like you get something going on. So I think like this could just stack really aggressively, and I think it's good. Like let's say this was even a 2/3. Like you might be hearing me say like, oh well, it's a 2/3. Like it's not, it might die to like three damage removal. But like just being a 4 toughness creature, I think does a lot for you here.
Yeah, interesting pick, Shane. I would not have. I thought that it was too fringy, but you got me realizing that there's like it, it's interesting that it was designed in a way to actually make it, I think, potentially playable.
For sure.
Good work. Okay, here's one. Samut, Vizier of Naktamun. God, these places.
You haven't been to Naktamun?
I mean, I spent a lot of time on Amonkhet. I don't remember even hearing about Naktamun, but maybe I just missed the signs. Samut is 1 red-green for a 2/3 legendary human warrior cleric. It has first strike, vigilance, and haste.
I like all those things.
Yeah. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, if that creature entered the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So that procs on this because this has haste. And it's basically whenever any creature deals damage to a player, the turn it entered. But the other thing that got me thinking is that this seems to like have a powerful 1/2 punch with Reckless Storm Chaser specifically, because that too gives creatures haste whenever you want. Made me wonder whether you could play this in a Gruul strategy with or without boats, just pairing it with Storm Chaser and, if not other hasty creatures, like other creatures that have really good attack triggers, which then lets you draw a bunch of cards. Obviously, it's going to beat down as well.
I mean, I think that it definitely snowballs pretty well. I think it's like a little understated, but I think that if you're playing in a deck where it's like there's a lot of creatures there swinging in, then it kind of stretches your opponent's defenses a little bit because you're like, well, I don't really want Samut to survive, but I also don't want all these other things dealing damage to me. So it might just sort of add to the ability of the deck to close.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, hey, I don't want anything hitting. If anything does connect, then like you're really pulling ahead by drawing like 1, 2, 3 cards, something like that. I mean, the real thing is they have to ETB this turn, so that's the tough spot.
Right. That's why like it essentially has to be in a deck either full of hasters or have like plenty of ways to make haste.
Yeah, I mean, like you could live the dream where it's like Burning Tree Emissary, that one goblin.
Bushwhacker, reckless bushwhacker.
I mean, but then like you're already doing well if you're doing that type thing. So it's like
Yeah.
you don't really need Samut.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I think this was worthy of mentioning even in the first place is the fact that like it's drawing you cards in Gruul. And a Gruul beatdown strategy runs out of gas so quickly that having like a way to do that that's on plan seemed worth paying attention to.
Yeah, it doesn't require you like rummaging or anything like that. It's just strictly draw a card, which is nice. So
Okay, so those are the cards that we were most excited about.
I think
Maybe,
there's some fringy stuff, maybe like,
yeah,
Dranith Ruins, maybe like can do something in scales you mentioned, and I mean I thought about that too. I was like maybe it's a little slow, but it's a land that puts counters on things.
yeah. Draenith Ruins is interesting because if Scales is out, it puts 3 counters on things. But
Oh yeah.
we'll see. This will be an exciting set for Sleep Believe Heave. Like even though we kind of hate it on principle, these cards are fun and exciting in an innocent way.
I'm kind of surprised you think we're going to have something for like a Sleep Believe Heave on this. Like I think we went into the set when we were kind of talking about it in the intro, just being like, there's some stuff that's on the bubble, and then as the more we talked about it, the more I think that there's some push here. Like I think there's some strong stuff. I think there's as I'm saying this, my co-host is wiping his brow with a Union Jack napkin. Or is that a bandana?
It's a hanky.
Oh, okay. It's a hanky. So enough on that. Stan, I think we will see something happen with these cards. I think that there's going to be some cool stuff. I think that, it weirdly it gets my brain brewing, which is rare. So I'm curious, when we talk to Devin soon, if he has any ideas for any of these cards and thinks has some ideas for maybe things in Dragons or elsewhere. So I'm hyped.
Yeah, there better be Sleep Believe Heave content because we got to make podcasts about something.
Oh, man, I keep forgetting we have to do that every week. We got to make one of these podcasts. How does it keep happening? How does time keep marching on? Speaking of marching on, Lord of the Rings spoilers are going to slowly continue trickling in for some reason. They can't give us a normal spoiler season on this.
Yeah, so I believe the normal spoiler season kicks off the last week of May, if I understand certain like press announcements that I've received correctly. I think we'll have a proper
certain
spoiler
press
season.
announcements, Stanislav.
Yeah, people I know were telling me things, but until we get the proper spoilers, I guess we're just getting this slow drip.
Most importantly,
Maybe it's to build excitement among non-Magic players.
I mean, how are they getting this news? Like, is there like some kid on the corner being like, extra, extra, we know what tempted by the ring means.
Yeah, or maybe there's a Lord of the Rings IRQ.
Yeah, ICQ.
ICQ. What was the name of that chat?
Get at me, ICQ 222-0289. Yeah, IRC, which is like Discord effectively, like kind of made a lot better in a lot of ways.
Right, but the Ring Tempts You. We know what that means. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. We have the card, so we know what being tempted by the ring means. That's new. We have a few new cards that I think are somewhat overlookable, besides one that is definitely pushed to play that we'll talk about. So let's quickly talk. Well, we can't quickly talk because it's like 5,000 words.
Yeah, it's about as long as a Tolkien novel. Am I right?
My guy. So this is vaguely like a Lord of the Rings dungeon.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's sort of like what happens is as the ring tempts you, you get this emblem, and it's named the ring. And if you don't already have the ring, then the emblem gains its next ability, of which there are 4, and you choose a creature you control to become or remain your ring bearer. So the ring can tempt you even if you don't control a creature. It just sort of moves down the ring steps of its dungeon. It gains the ability in order from top to bottom, so it sort of stacks these abilities, and we'll talk about what those abilities are in a second. Each time the ring tempts you, you have to choose a creature if you control one, and you can only have one ring and one ring bearer at a time. So that's not too hard. Basically, if you have a creature and you get tempted, you have to choose a ring bearer, and each time you get tempted, your ring emblem basically levels up. So there are 4 levels, and that's it. That's what happens. So let's read these abilities, and I'll start with the first one. The first thing that happens when you get tempted by the ring, on your ring emblem, it says, your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, which I believe is Skulk. Why not just say, everyone knows Skulk. Yeah, so anyway, can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. That's it.
All right, so the next ability when the ring tempts you is whenever your ring bearer attacks, draw a card, then discard a card.
So you just loot. That's good. Well, it's an attacking loot trigger.
Sure.
Okay, fine. I don't know. I mean, the thing seems fine. It's nothing game breaking here. I don't have too much to say about it. Do you?
It's an ability. I'm not going to dither
Yeah.
over abilities.
Whenever your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices it at end of combat. So it kind of gives it like a death touch effect, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Seems good.
Yeah, and what's neat about that as well is that it beats indestructible. It's a sack.
Oh, very cool. I like that a lot. And then also, it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So, I mean, I don't know what exactly that does because, like,
So let's say you have like a chump blocker that's got a big butt.
oh yeah, good point. Yeah. So your walls deck is not going to be super happy to see this.
Sorry, Walls players. You burnt.
What's our final level 4 ability of the ring? We get tempted a lot.
Whenever your ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life.
Oh, okay. That seems fine.
Yeah. So at minimum, your ring bearer is dealing 4 damage when it attacks. At minimum.
So yeah, this is all like fine. Like this is all fine. And that's it. Once your ring is there, it does not gain any more levels or anything like that. So
yeah, nor does it lose abilities. You just you've built it up to its max power. All of the elvish text on the ring is glowing red, like the fires of Mordor.
And it's an emblem. It's like it's not an artifact. So like you've just sort of like leveled up this emblem, and your opponent can't really do anything about it, as far as I know. And so like, if ever you are tempted by the ring again, then you sort of can slap the ring on to your ring bearer. Or maybe there's some some ETB where it's like, I think the only way to become a ring bearer is to be tempted by the ring. So I don't think like there's probably, I mean, unless there's some other text on cards where it's like, if there are no ring bearers, you now bear the ring or something like that. But I'm going to guess it just says you're tempted by the ring.
Right. That makes sense.
I don't have anything to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we judge this. Well, eventually, we'll probably just have to judge this ability based on the quality of like temptation cards.
100%. Because I mean, it's kind of like traversing through the dungeon, right?
Yeah.
Where you're going to have some ability to. You're going to have some reason to go through the advance your ring up to be tempted by the ring.
Yeah.
And the cards I think we've seen so far, like the early spoilers of like Sam and some version of Frodo and things like that, are not ridiculously over the top in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I think Gollum also tempts you.
No, Gollum certainly does. There is one card. There is one card, Call of the Ring, that got revealed as well. It's a 1 and a black enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, the ring tempts you. So this does kind of churn you through your ring levels.
So there's more. Keep
reading the card that you interrupted me from when I was reading. Thank you, Stanislav.
Sorry, I just thought you were already adding color commentary, but I wanted to.
Whenever you choose a creature as a ring bearer, which would happen at every upkeep, because the ring is tempting you, and you can reassign the ring bearer.
Yes.
You may pay 2 life if you do draw a card. So you just like a very black card draw effect where you can reassign the ring, you can pay 2 life, and you draw a card. I don't think this is like worth the cardboard, but I think that there's some option. I mean, the thing that happens here is you get tempted constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good because you don't have to keep playing other cards that have the ring tempt you. But is this really worth the cost? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the cost being 2 mana and a card in your deck. I guess those are the costs we refer to. I think that you can potentially, if you have other ways to tempt yourself in a turn, like you could be paying 4, 6 life, drawing 2, 3 cards a turn. So.
Oh, I mean, like if you keep reassigning it, if you play another card that's like the ring tempts you, you choose another creature as a ring bearer, etc., etc. I mean, that's a lot of life to pay, but
you would need multiple creatures out. But your Death Shadow keeps it growing.
Good point. This is going to my modern Death Shadow deck. You're right.
Yeah, you haven't played that in a while, Shane, and I keep telling you that the tech is there.
The tech is now there. Call the ring.
There was another card that was spoiled that we
Yes.
we
Let's talk
actually
about
thought
this.
was more worthwhile. Uh,
Yes.
That's Delighted Halfling, a
People
single
people are talking about this one. People be talking.
people be talking. Delighted Halfling, single green for a 1/2 Halfling citizen rare. It can tap to add colorless, or it can tap to add 1 mana of any color, but you may only spend this to cast a legendary spell, and that spell can't be countered.
Yep.
Wow, wow, wee,
So
wow.
yeah, people seemed like, doing the eyes emoji on this pretty quickly. They're like, "Whoa, my goodness!" So. I think the most important thing that people are noticing about this is that it's the only 1 mana dork besides Gilded Goose that survives Wrenn and 6. So you can play this on turn 1. Your opponent plays a Wrenn and 6 on turn 2. They can't just immediately get it off the board. So there's some value there. But there's also legendary spells that you're going to want to cast with this potentially, like planeswalkers, like legendary creatures, things like that. Those are the kind of the primary ones people are looking at. And immediately people's minds, for whatever reason, are going to like uncounterable Teferi Time Raveler.
Mm,
That does stretch you into a Bant deck. You're doing green, white, blue things. It's not unheard of. I mean, we have 4 and 5 color Omnath decks already. And that's where I think people are seeing this. It's like Omnath value piles. So things like, Delighted Halfling also can just trade with Ragavan because it has power. So it's like a 1/2. So it has ability just there where it's just like, hey, you're not getting your Ragavan benefit. You can't swing into me. You have to kill this Halfling to swing in. I've seen people mention like Yawgmoth. I don't think that you can cast enough of the deck with the legendary spell clause on the Halfling. I mean, it does add colorless, which is fine. Um, I think that. What do you think? Before I get into like my pros and cons on this.
yeah, it's actually really hard for me to evaluate this card. Like, mana dorks, I think, are just so utilitarian that when they see play, it's for like good reasons, but they're not that interesting for me to analyze in depth.
Yeah, exactly.
If this sees play, like I won't be shocked. If it doesn't see play, it'll be just yet another like somewhat situational mana dork that didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah, I think people have been since the decline of like Noble Hierarch, like since something like Noble Hierarch and like you remember what we talked about like Ignoble Hierarch. Remember people
Yeah,
were amped
yeah,
about
myself
Ignoble,
included.
right? And I think that people forgot like how hard it is to get a mana dork into your deck that is worth the downside. Like is it's worth like the bad top deck. Like how important is ramp? These days. It doesn't need to survive. Point removal. Like this is harder for Fury to kill for value because it takes 2 of the pings from Fury, but it's still perfectly doable for an early Fury, evoked or something like that. So it's just like the days of mana dorks giving you consistent value in modern are a little bit over, right? I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
But this one might be good enough in a deck like 4 or 5 color Omnath stuff where it's like, hey, I'm quickly getting out ahead. I'm getting my Omnath down. I'm getting my Teferi 3 down. I think people are really living in fear of Teferi 3. People like us, like Cascaders, people who play Glimpse and Rhinos and Living End, and like, oh man, how am I going to deal with an uncounterable Teferi 3? Like, I can't Force of Negation this. I can't Mystical Dispute this. But I'm not overly concerned about that because then my opponent is playing a Deleted Halfling in their deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, there's always the issue of, yeah, I'm advancing my mana, but I'm also playing a mana dork.
it, it's modern beyond mana dorks. Like, is that just what Ren and Six is for now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Is like, is the, I mean, we do see the advantage of playing something like Gemstone Caverns in like our Cascade decks, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's so good when you're a turn ahead on a deck like that. But in terms of like a value oriented deck, I don't think we're seeing like people trying to figure out a way to play like Llanowar Elves or Elvish Mystic in their deck simply because they can. Like it's not worth it. So basically what I'm looking at here is like, is Delighted Halfling worth my time if I am playing like a 4-color value deck when like just simply because it makes something uncounterable?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wonder if we need to go to the well of other legendary spells that aren't walkers, like that
Math.
cycle from Dominaria of legendary sorceries, even. You know what I mean? And they're probably overpriced, and that's, I suspect, why they don't see play, but maybe you mitigate that a little bit with a mana dork.
Yeah, I think people might be overly concerned about this myself, but I think that's an interesting dork. And we have a ton more cards left in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's premature to kind of poo-poo the ring stuff. Like I don't think we did, but I think that, is the payoff worth being tempted by the ring? I think we got a lot left on this one, and maybe some cards will sniff modern play. We didn't talk about the Gandalf that got spoiled. That's somewhat interesting, and we'll have more about to talk about, I think, as the cards continue to be revealed.
Nice. Whew, we did it.
We got to get you out of here. You've got some dinner to go to.
Yeah, but I've got a couple minutes. We did tease a wind down, didn't we? We didn't say what it was, though. How about just to add 60 to 120 seconds of content?
Perfect. That's all I need.
We crack a booster pack?
Oh, is that a March of the Machine?
Yeah.
Crack a pack. Crack a pack.
So while cracking this pack, I'll tell you, Shane, I have been drafting this set a lot.
In paper or online?
Online.
Okay.
You're not
hanging out with your fellow Mancunians cracking packs?
No, I don't know where to draft in Manchester. Maybe there's like a special night of the week where you can. 1/1 blue-red elemental token. But yeah, so I've been drafting this set a lot. I've really, really liked it. And as we go through these cards, I'll talk about like what are maybe good cards for limited. How about that? Or at least from what I play in the decks that I like.
Give me some context, my friend.
I'll tell you, when I'm drafting, I really like drafting white.
Okay.
I think white goes really deep. It pairs well with blue, with green, and with red. You don't have to draft white. Like the blue-black deck also actually seems awesome, but I've just had a lot of fun drafting white. First card of the pack is Infected Defector, though, not worth mentioning. War Historian, just a stupid human monk with reach. Who cares?
How do you know it's stupid?
I've tried playing with it. It does nothing. Furtive Analyst, a human wizard, skippable. Hanger Scrounger, a dwarf pilot with backup. I'm not going to talk about the card, but I will say backup is a really cool aggressive mechanic.
Oh yeah, backup seems really good. Backup seems like what Mentor want. Like, I don't know if you played much with Mentor. Like, how do you feel about how do you feel backup compares to Mentor and Limited?
I don't. So Mentor, was that from like Crimson Vow?
No, Mentor was like, that's older. It's like if the creature with Mentor has more power than another creature, you add a 1/1 counter to the creature with less power.
Yeah, I don't think I drafted that set, whatever that set was. What set was that, actually?
Don't remember. I don't remember.
Guilds of Ravnica. Oh,
but I remember drafting it.
Yeah, I remember drafting Guilds of Ravnica a bit. No, actually, no, I didn't. I was playing like Standard at the time. So yeah, I have I have no comments about Mentor. But I will say the last aggressive mechanic that I liked as much as I like backup was called Exert. I think this is the best.
Good. I think
this is
a
the
really
best
good mechanic.
Like for my money, this is the best aggro mechanic since Exert.
Sweet.
Gloomfang Mauler. It's a nightmare. Not worth talking about. Moment of Truth. Don't care. Etch Toast Doombringer. Whatever. Elvish Vat Keeper. Have not played with it.
Keeper of the Vat.
Storm the Seed Core. Little expensive. All right, we got to our first rare, and this is actually a good card. First rare. Sunfall. It's that 5 mana exile all creatures.
Oh, is this a booster? Is this a draft booster or is this a set booster?
It's a draft booster, but
okay.
It could have more than one rare. It could, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. What is this again?
It's exile all creatures. Incubate X, where X is the number of creatures
Oh,
exiled this way.
oh, I mean, a perfect limited card, right? You want your Wrath unlimited.
Yeah, it's killer. It leaves behind a body. Incubate's a really cool mechanic because there's enough ways to like either flip your incubate tokens for free, or you can just flip them at instant speed, which is something that doesn't come up in constructed. I don't think we've ever seen any incubate cards in any formats that we pay attention to, but that's like an added little detail to incubate that wasn't obvious to me at spoiler season that actually made them a little more popular or powerful and limited than I may have anticipated. All right, we have another uncommon Nizumi Freewheeler. It's a rat samurai. Our second uncommon is Invasion of Xerix. It's the blue-white invasion. When it enters a battlefield, return up to one target creature to its owner's hand. It has 4 defense, and it flips into an angel knight.
Okay. How do those battles feel, by the way? Like, how have battles felt?
They are interesting but hard to play. Like,
Yeah, makes sense.
sometimes they will like completely swing a game, and you have to attack into them because they leave behind like a really powerful body, including but not limited to
Like mine?
yeah, like your body could be on the back of a battle. Invasion of Xerix, it bounces a creature back, but the backside is a flying angel knight whose power and toughness is equal to the number of creatures you control. The fact this is a flying creature that scales up and can just like get through a board stall makes this a battle that I would probably consider flipping into. I do generally prefer to attack battles earlier in the game than later in the game, because if I feel like the kill is within striking distance, I'd rather go for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But battles have been fun. There are some that I'll just about never draft, but in general, like the front sides tend to actually be, I think, like playable enough that they can be good even if you're not going to flip into them.
Sometimes battles can be good.
All right, so we got our legend that comes in every pack. It's Shanna Sisei's Legacy. It's an uncommon legend that also gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. It has pseudo hexproof. We have another legend.
How many cards are in this pack?
There's so many. This is why I was like, we got our first rare. We only have one rare, but we got another legend. It's Rada, Coalition Warlord. Great frame on this old
Oh, that's good.
card.
That's nice.
It's a domain card.
Looking good.
Looking good. And then we have this full art swamp.
Oh, nice looking swamp.
It doesn't look like a swamp. It looks like a city.
Remember when full art lands were novel?
I do remember. They're not
I still
anymore.
have my Zendikar lands.
Good for you. Are they worth anything?
Oh no. But I still like them a lot. I still play them when I need like 13 islands. Like I play like my nice Zendikar islands and stuff like that.
Yeah. So there we go. We cracked a pack. I think we're ready to wrap up the show. I'll drop a little tease. I'm working on a new YouTube video just for YouTube of like a full-on crack packathon with a special guest, a friend of the show we haven't had on in a while, but someone who I really love, admire, and am excited to collab with.
Oh yeah, I know who it is, and I'm apt for it too. I like them as well. They're a great person.
In any case, Shane, we did it.
I mean, I didn't think we had an episode.
It's true. Shane did not think we had an episode.
And then we're cutting ourselves off.
And here we are talking, as we always do. So I gotta run. I gotta go get a Sunday roast. I'm gonna go have some meat and potatoes. But it does wrap up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episode as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to submit a question or just reach out in general, you can tweet us at @thedivedown, all one word, or email thedivedown@gmail.com. You should reach out if you feel like leaving a negative review for us. Just reach out to us first. Let's talk before you affect our star rating.
If you got something to say, let us know.
I think that's a fair compromise, right? We want you to be heard. We just don't want anyone else to hear from you. If you want to support us, you can join our Patreon over at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can do so. You can also support us through our store at thedivedown.com/store. Shout out to Mana Traders for sponsoring the Dive Down. If you sign up for Mana Traders using promo code the Dive Down 2023, all one word, you'll get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. Also get some amazing shaving soaps, body soaps, fragrances, and more at Barrister and Man using promo code the Dive Down 2023 for 15% off your first order. And save some money on paper cards over at Nerd Rage Gaming with code DIVE8 for 8% off your order from NRG. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and after.